Christian, what is your favorite podcast?
Dits on Wrestling.
And that is why you should be in the Hall of Fame, my friend. There you go. This podcast is endorsed by none other than Christian. Obviously, it's not. Come on. I almost had you fooled. Probably not. Welcome back to the Dits on Wrestling podcast, the podcast that you never even asked for. I have returned from a 2-week holiday, nice and refreshed, ready to get back into my little baby, the DOWPOD. And I've missed quite a lot since I've been away. I tried to keep up with wrestling and just all the stuff as much as I possibly could. It was a struggle because I really wanted to focus on sun, beer, tans, the pool, the beach, and just enjoying time with my family rather than, losing my mind and losing my head in wrestling. But I did manage to keep up with enough of the stuff just to keep me ticking over nicely. Like, I watched the entirety of Extreme Rules, and I actually really loved it. I thought it was a really good pay-per-view. But because I wasn't that active on social media the night of, it took me about 3 days to actually watch it. I don't know what you guys actually thought about it. And I went to actually look into it as well, and I couldn't find anything. The buzz had gone. Like, that's the thing now. Once a show is done, you've got about a day of trying to work out what everybody thought about it, and then it's over. So I missed my opportunity to see people either whining about it or expressing their love for it. But ultimately, I loved it. So what does it matter? As long as the viewer, you, is happy with what you're watching, then what does it matter what other people think? I mean, I have to kind of be interested in what other people think, because I put your thoughts on this podcast because, it's interactive, kind of, and, I like to keep everybody nice and involved. Now, with RAW and Smackdown last week, I watched I watched Raw a little bit, kind of skipped over it, not because I wanted to skip over it, it's just out of necessity, and then Smackdown I completely missed and watched via YouTube. It's quite interesting watching a whole show over YouTube. I don't know if anyone's, done that. I mean, probably a few people have because they're sick of, sitting through, a whole 3 hours of Raw, so you just decide to sit through the YouTube highlights instead. It was interesting, but all the key points were there. I feel like I came away, up to date with everything that was going on. So there's that at least. And I thought they were both good shows from what I saw. And I think that's where we are now with WWE. I think we've reached, I talked about it before I left. I'd say probably about episode 10, maybe episode 9 of this podcast, that WWE was starting to get better. I was starting to enjoy shows, week on, every single week, especially Raw. And I think now that we are now at that level of consistency where you can at least enjoy the show. It doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean it's good, but it means we can at least sit there and enjoy it. That's personally how I feel anyway. And I think it's more because I just completely switch off now. Whenever I decide to watch WWE, any wrestling in general, not necessarily WWE, it could be AEW, New Japan, whatever, Impact, MLW, I just switch off. I tend not to overthink things anymore, and I'm enjoying everything about wrestling more than I usually would. So let's take Extreme Rules, for example. That actually might have been perceived as, a bad show amongst, the vast majority of us fans. But because I just, turned my brain off and just thought, no, this is wrestling. This is what it is. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. There were some bits that were, a bit iffy. But you're going to get that on every show. Not every show can be perfect. There's always room for improvement. Always room for improvement. But no, I feel that we're in a good place. I do feel like we're in a good place with WWE at the moment, which makes me excited to, sit here, every week and talk about it, because it was getting to that point where I was a bit like, I got to find highlights this week, and I am struggling. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. There's plenty of good wrestling going on, and I just want to give a shout out to Evolve as well. I watched Evolve 131, not in its entirety. I watched it when I got up the following day whilst I was still away. And I watched probably about three of the matches in full, and then I was just falling asleep in between all the others. And that's not a reflection on the show. I was just exhausted because I probably went to bed at like 4 o'clock the previous day, and I was up with the kids, at like 7 or 8 in the morning. So I'm a night owl, but even that took it out of me. So from what I saw, I very, very much enjoyed it. But before we move into Raw and Smackdown this week, I just want to, I've been away for 2 weeks. I returned on Monday with the power rankings. So if you haven't checked that out, go and give it a listen. I've been doing a lot of thinking. Time away from this, this thing. It does give you an opportunity to think about what you want to do with it, and what works or what doesn't work. What I think you guys want. Your mind seems to work, over time, just trying to figure. Ultimately, I want this to be the best thing that it can be, and I want to enjoy it as much as I can in, throwing it out there for you. So I think over the next, it's not going to happen immediately, because at the moment I'm just settling back into the podcast again. But changes are coming. I've got a few ideas in my head. Just structurally, I think the podcast is going to change. The highlights are always going to be here because I enjoy doing the highlights. It's not a full Raw and Smackdown recap. That's what I like about it. It's just highlights, and I think it's easier to digest. But it's the stuff around it. So that'll be the primary focus. But, I want to add stuff in and, kind of keep it all together, because at the moment I got bonus episodes, lined up, which I will, follow through on. I've got a couple of guests lined up, which is really exciting, especially there's one guy I've got coming on who I'm very, very excited about. It's actually an interview as well. It's not Tag Topics. It is an interview, so I'm very, very excited about that. But more details will obviously drop as we get closer to that hitting the streets. But, I kind of want to keep everything together, because Tag Topics is something I really want to expand on, because, I love, now that I've got another podcast with Ditz versus Josh, I'm enjoying having a co-host. Obviously, I don't want to co-host on this. This is my baby, and I want it to keep that way. But that doesn't mean I can't have guests on here. So I want to expand on that Tag Topics. I want to get into it a little bit more, and maybe that'll be included in the weekly episode, and the time that the episode time will just increase by 30 minutes or so. I don't know, but this is not me saying that this whole thing is going to change, because it's not. It's just structurally, it's just going to get a little bit of a rejig, but that won't be coming now. You're probably looking a good month down the line as I completely reassess what's going on. Obviously, I've had a lot of time to think about it. Now I'm just settling back into, doing the podcast, that and love. And eventually I'll pull the trigger and, work on what I've got in my head. But we'll get to that. We will get to that. Just a heads up. Just giving you a heads up that, things are coming. Things are coming. Now, let's not break the norm. You get your Raw and Smackdown highlights from me every single week. And, of course, we always kick off with Monday Night Raw. Raw Reunion this week. Very interesting stuff. Now, did I enjoy it or did I hate it? Let's find out.
Welcome to Monday Night Raw!
Now, you really have to take these, gimmick Raws and gimmick, obviously it's not SmackDown, this is Raw, but, the gimmick shows, you have to take them with a pinch of salt. The shows are never going to be outstanding. these shows, the only purpose they have, well, the obvious reason is for ratings. That's, black and white, pure and simple, fact. But for us as the fans, it's all about nostalgia. So, I'm happy with nostalgia. I don't mind these shows because I can kind of suspend my, expectations when it comes to these shows, because you're not going to get much storyline progression. You're not going to get much going on. But you can at least say that the show is going to be fun. And that's what it was. The show was really fun. It was a good show. It wasn't outstanding, as I said, but it was fun. And ultimately, that's what it's all about. As long as you enjoyed the show, who cares? Who cares? We've still got enough time to build for SummerSlam. This seemed like a bit of a pause for Raw. Well, I say Raw as if these are separate brands. Like the brand split is no more. The wildcard rule is no more. It doesn't even seem to be mentioned anymore, which is bizarre. I don't know if it's been mentioned over the last couple of weeks, but this being the first Raw that I've properly sat down and watched, I didn't hear it said once. Not once. I may be wrong, but I didn't hear it. But no, I thought it was a good show. And I have plenty of highlights to, back that up. So my first highlight, just purely because we don't really see him anymore, it was John Cena. And his opening promo, it was purely there just to hype up the crowd, and Cena is really, really good at doing that. The crowd were awful throughout the night, with the exception of like Steve Austin, because it's stone cold. But for the most part of the evening, the crowd were dead. And you can say what you want. You can either say it's because WWE are putting out a bad product, so that reflects on the crowd, or you can just say it's the crowd's fault. Whatever it is, Cena went out there to hype the crowd up, and he did, but obviously it just didn't last. The Usos came out. It was fun. Had Rikishi and all that kind of stuff. The best part of it was Cena. With his just a little shade of the Doctor of Thugonomics with the mugshot comment. I thought that was really funny. I do miss Word Life Doctor of Thugonomics Cena. I really do, which is why WrestleMania was so cool for me to watch. Then the Revival came out with Devon, which was random. It didn't really make sense why Devon would be there. Maybe people know something that I don't, but extremely random. But there you go. And then, the match was the match. That wasn't my highlight. The highlight was Cena himself. He was in, true form, hyped up the crowd. Job done. That's what he's there for. Highlight number 2, Drew McIntyre absolutely destroying Cedric Alexander. He needed that after last week. I don't mind Cedric winning against Drew. A little bit of it does, because I want Drew to be, I want him to be bigger than he is. I want him to be higher up the standings than he is, rather than taking losses against Cedric for whatever reason. But it was also cool to see Cedric actually get a spotlight and pick up a win against somebody really established at the moment. So that was cool. But you needed to do something this week. Either give Drew his win back, which is the boring, predictable 50-50, way that WWE seem to do things, or you can just have him flat out destroy Cedric, which was the better option. It makes Drew look like a complete badass, which is what he's all about. And that's what we should always have from him. And, instead we have him as a stooge of Shane, but it is what it is. He can still act like a badass regardless of being paired with the so-called best in the world. He can still be a badass. He's the badass henchman of Shane's little cabinet that he's got going on. But no, it was really good to see Drew kicking ass. That's what it's all about. Kicking ass. And that reverse Alabama slam, genius. Loved it. Now, when I looked at the 24/7 championship stuff, I mean, it was throughout the night. It was, you wouldn't think that was the big story coming out of Raw, because really it was the longest running segment throughout the show, and it was really cool to see certain people win it, and some of it was a bit random and not executed particularly well. I mean, I've heard that the writers booked everything. So they booked their entire show. I don't know whether it was just purely down to the 24/7 stuff they were booking, or if it was everything. But they booked the show with the assumption that all these legends who were showing up could take bumps, and of course that's not true, because you're not going to see Ric Flair. You're not going to see Ric Flair take a power slam through an announce table. You're not going to see Scott Hall speared through the stage. You're not going to see any of that kind of stuff. And I mean, look, Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson were involved in title wins on Monday, and their bumps were minimal, like very, very minimal. Like Kelly, like shadow kneed Gerald Briscoe to get the pin. So yeah, some of it wasn't that, it wasn't executed great, but that doesn't mean it wasn't entertaining. That's what I've got to take away from it. The whole 24/7 thing was entertaining, and it ended well. I like the fact that who actually came in as champion? I think it was R-Truth. I'm going to say R-Truth. I'm going with, it was R-Truth. Of course it was. R-Truth went into the night as the champion, and he left as the champion. So it was bookended quite well with all the shenanigans in between. Really good. It's still entertaining to me. The 24/7 championship still entertaining to me, and it's still pretty much down to R-Truth and Drake. So good on them. Good on them for giving that to us. A brief one is the War Raiders. They always seem to be on highlights for me. I think they squashed Jobbers last week. I can't remember. But this week, they actually got a credible win over former tag team champions. So it's as if they've caught up to where they initially got to, because they beat Ryder and Hawkins when they were tag team champions, and then just disappeared for like 5 or 6 weeks, and then went back to jobbers again. Now we've caught up. Now they've beaten them again, but obviously they're not the champions anymore. But they were. They're still former champions, still the last champions. Prior to the revival. So, this win still has meaning, kind of. It's good to see them, slowly build their way up now. Now next week they can't go back to jobbers again. That can't happen. They need to beat another credible team, somebody who, doesn't really matter, like throw the B team at them, Hey, it wasn't that long ago we would have been saying throw heavy machinery at them, but they're on the rise. Throw the B team at them, throw the Ascension at them if they're still employed. Like, just some team that doesn't even matter, just throw them at them. Like, just keep building them, because they're money. They are so good, especially considering they started with the whole experience thing. Like, they have evolved and come a long way since that atrocity. Now, let me see my notes for the highlights. Samoa Joe is my next highlight. You guys who listen to this know that I'm a big fan of Samoa Joe, and obviously a lot of people are. It's hard not to be, despite the fact that he's a heel. He's a very good bloody heel. He came out and just basically slammed the whole reunion thing, and I'm sure a lot of fans related to that, because to some people it is a ratings grab. It's not for any of our benefits, really. It's selfish reasons that they come back. And Samoa Joe just slammed the whole thing. The opening segment with Rikishi, the Usos, he was bad-mouthing in general, and then Roman Reigns had to come out and stand up for family, and they ended up having a little brawl, which Samoa Joe got the upper hand, which was great. But then the match happened, which it was a good match. and he lost. So, Joe is made to look fantastic, as he always does in promos. Then he assaulted Reigns again, Joe looking great. And then he lost. And he lost clean. How many losses does he have to have for his credibility just to, disappear? Because it seems that's what keeps happening. He just keeps losing clean all the time. And it is damaging. It really is. He's a guy that can rebound from it. But ultimately, we're just going to stop thinking that he's a credible performer if he just keeps losing, these big matches. He's not had a great month. Sami Zayn, I have down as a highlight, and it was purely just in the party segment. Again, he was kind of echoing Samoa Joe's thoughts. Kind of like the Attitude Era's been and gone. Everyone's here, bygone era, all this kind of stuff. Their time is been and gone. Like, forget about it. And his face app comment tickled me. I can't remember what it was, but it was, you'll remember it because it was funny. But I have a memory like a sieve, so I forget stuff like this. And that led to a match with Rey Mysterio at in the next segment. I was expecting something really good here. I really was. I mean, this is, it's not a dream match, but it's certainly a match that a lot of people would want to see, including myself. So I was ready for it. And then, of course, Sami Zayn tries to get away. An Avengers 2.0 come out with, Hurricane, Kurt Angle, Sergeant Slaughter. And my next highlight, Rob Van Dam was on Raw. What the hell? Like, he's an Impact guy, and he's on Raw. That was, out of the entire show, that was the thing that really, really shocked me. And, Steve Austin, him coming out, that was goosebumps. That was awesome. Like, we'll get into that. But RVD was, a close second for me. I loved RVD back in the day. And, Jesus, like, what is he doing here? I was just, when I heard One of a Kind come on, I was like, geez, like, what is happening? Of course, he didn't wrestle, he didn't get physical or anything like that, but the fact he was on WWE TV, mind-blowing. So obviously they've had a chat with Impact, and it probably ties into this whole Rhino thing that's going on, and they're kind of going, well, you did the Rhino thing, but give us RVD for the reunion, and, it's just going to be water under the bridge. So I think that's what happened. But I was happy with that. That was a good moment for me, seeing RVD again in WWE. Then we had AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins. You always knew there was going to be shenanigans. The AJ and the club are now dubbed the OC. So, not the best name in the world, but they do have a really cool t-shirt, which is something I haven't said for a while about WWE merch. I like that t-shirt. Really cool. Of course, there was going to be shenanigans. Of course there was. DX came out. The Click came out. And you worry a little bit when DX come out with, the Click, the NWO, whatever. Because you just know that somebody is about to be buried. Somebody we all love is about to be buried. But not this time. It was good. It was good the way it was done. It was, AJ, Anderson, Gallows, they knew they were outnumbered, despite the fact that even if one of them tried to throw a kick or a punch, they'd probably snap their hip. It's a good change. It breaks tradition, because the tradition is these legends come back and, they just completely undermine talent that is trying to get over. And it didn't happen this time. Obviously, the focus was on them. Of course it was. But it wasn't at the expense of somebody else, which was refreshing. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the segment, to be honest with you. I've got no issue with DX coming back and doing their shtick. I don't have issues with the NWO coming back and doing their shtick. It is what it is. I found it entertaining. It didn't hurt anybody else. It's a win in my book. It is a win. Then we had I'm talking just forget the reunion stuff. Let's just push that to one side, even though this kind of involved the reunion in some way. Mick Foley comes out, and you got the 24/7 stuff, intertwined between his promo, but he's there just to share his favorite Raw memory, and that was winning the WWF title back in 1998, I think it was. Then all of a sudden, all the lights started going off, the video started messing up, and you knew exactly what was coming, but just not how it was going to be done. Mick Foley can't take bumps, so how is this all going to play out? And then we had Bray in the ring with The Fiend again, and he slaps on Mick Foley's own move. I call it a move. I use that term very loosely in this case. The mandible claw. Whilst that shrieking thing was going on and the strobe lights were going on, oh my God, it was fantastic. And I said before the show that I would love nothing more than to see Bray Wyatt destroy every legend on the show as The Fiend. I would love nothing more than that. We didn't get that, but we got one legend. I will take that. And it's Mick Foley, like the selfless guy that he is, was willing, to essentially sit or lay down for Bray Wyatt, which is good. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, what else happens. Or something happened on SmackDown, guys, which is what we're going to get into in a minute. But no, great segment, loved it. Then, of course, we had the main event segment. The Hulk stuff, whatever. I'm going to skip past that. I don't really care for Hulk Hogan. Steve Austin, goosebumps. Absolute goosebumps. The Rock, Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and sometimes Triple H. They give me goosebumps from looking back in that era. And yeah, this was one of those moments. And I was expecting stunners. We all thought Kevin Owens was going to be here. They were going to stun a Shane. Throughout the evening, it didn't happen. We actually got a heartfelt promo from Steve, and a couple of stories. Just talking about family and saying what happened the night before, all that kind of stuff. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was nice to see that side of Austin again. Of course, we got the Steve Weisers and all that stuff, all that good stuff that we know and love. But it was a really good way to end the show. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And that ended a good show for me. I haven't seen a bad Raw now for a month. Well, over a month, I'd say, since I saw a bad Raw. Maybe even a little bit more. So this is good. We're at a consistent level now. And, of course, we've got Paul Heyman behind the scenes on Raw. And then we've got Eric Bischoff behind the scenes on SmackDown. Some people are saying that he's not actually part of creative, but he's still there. He's still advising. He's still doing something. And, since then, I've been enjoying stuff. So there you go. Now, did you guys enjoy it, or did you have any musings about Raw? Well, I've got a couple of tweets that I'm going to share with you all now. So, Ross W. Berman, the fourth, said Austin upstaged Hulk Hogan, got drunk, implicated him and Gerald Briscoe in crimes in South Africa, said a swear, and made the show run long. Legend. Absolutely. Stone Cold can do what he wants, essentially. The Rock can do it, and Austin can do it, and it was entertaining as hell, as, I alluded to. Really good stuff. Josiah Williams, Wrestle Flow. Love Josiah's stuff. He, of course, works for WWE now. He's part of the WWE PC, and he was stood just to the side of the stage watching Austin's entrance. And he said, I will never, ever, ever get tired of hearing the glass break. Josiah, nobody will get tired of hearing that. Goosebumps, I'm telling you, goosebumps. Scotty Balla, 32, said, we made it through a Raw without Shane McMahon. And I didn't actually realize that until I saw that tweet. Wow. How did I not see that Shane McMahon was not on the show? Unbelievable. Get the Tables said, and this is about the Bray Wyatt segment, this was effing awesome. Seeing Bray Wyatt use the mandible claw on Mick Foley was badass. Yes, it was. It was perfect. The whole thing was perfect. People are saying, but they did the same, stuff that they did with Finn last week. Yeah, whatever. Didn't do it on Mick Foley. Didn't use the mandible claw. Two different things. Stop being negative. Speaking of that, Spees and the Benchmark show. Sure is a lot of bitching about the Raw reunion show. What happened to wrestling is supposed to be fun crowd? Guess that only applies to non-WWE shows. Exactly, this is what I said as I opened the Raw highlights. Treat this thing as fun. Don't expect anything outstanding, anything, alluding to storyline progression, any of that kind of stuff. It's just enjoy it. I mean, I know they're not always, getting their finger on the pulse and any of that kind of stuff, but just sit back and just switch your brain off and just enjoy. That's what I've done. Ever since I've switched my brain off to anything else, to anything that's going on the screen, I just sit and I watch it and I enjoy it. And since I've been, just clicking that off switch, I love it. My love for wrestling, or WWE anyway, has returned because it diminished a little bit, but now it's back. But yeah, that was your comments on Raw. Now, I've been critical of SmackDown in the last couple of episodes, so is this week any different? Let's find out.
Welcome everyone to SmackDown Live!
Let's put something into perspective here when it comes to SmackDown. If it's a bad show, I struggle to get highlights. As you know, I usually get, 2, maybe 3. If it's a good show, I still struggle sometimes to get highlights. So you're looking at 3, maybe 4. This week, I have quite a few. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 highlights. Some of them are, not massive highlights, but they're just, moments in the show that I enjoyed. But yeah, that signifies improvement for me. I really enjoyed SmackDown this week. It's the best SmackDown I've watched in weeks. And is that because Bischoff is now in charge behind the scenes? Obviously, reporting to Vince McMahon, but, he's the guy that reports to him directly. Is it because of him? I don't know. But I don't care either. It was good. Now, obviously, we opened with Shane, which, people complain that Shane is getting too much airtime, but for me, he didn't show up on Raw last night. So, just give him a little bit of time on SmackDown. We need to expect it now, every single show. And we didn't get it on Raw, which was, refreshing, but we were always going to get it on SmackDown, and we did. And his opening, it was okay for what it was. The fans chanted at him, you can't wrestle. And he said, well, ask Roman Reigns. I love his reaction to, some certain chants. But the segment for me became a highlight the moment Kevin Owens came out and started talking. Like, the man is in another league right now. And the rumor is he is completely off script. He gets a few bullet points, but he builds around it himself. And if that is true, then, I mean, to be honest, I think it is. You know, I find it easy to believe that because he's a good promo. He's a very good promo guy, Kevin Owens. But this just seems to have that little bit of an extra edge on it. And I think that edge is purely not having, 10, 12 writers breathing down your neck saying, right, you need to deliver this line this way. You need to say all these key words right here. This entire sentence is so important that you cannot miss a word of it. You can tell that that's not happening, which is good. And maybe people seeing how well Owens is handling it, maybe it'll be passed on to, other wrestlers. We'll see. But yeah, it was a really strong opening. Kevin Owens, great as always. He's in a match against Roman Reigns in the main event. And we will get into that because that was also a highlight for me as well. Apollo Crews, he is a highlight for me this week. He did really well against Shinsuke. He dominated, I'd say a good 75% of that match. And I think that's the best he's actually looked in a very, very long time. He probably looked... There was probably a US title open challenge over on Raw when he was there that he, probably had a good showing because the open challenges, you always seem to get a good match out of it. And I know he did one with Seth, I believe. And if I remember rightly, it was good. But I just really enjoyed this match against Shinsuke this week. He lost, but he looked strong in defeat. And this, to me, this is the best he's looked. Since NXT. And I remember when, I think it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks into his NXT run, I said he is a future world champion. Now, I mean, on the main roster anyway, I couldn't have been more wrong at the time. He's nowhere near. But the caliber is there. It's just character and promos. But in ring is, amazing. Amazing that a guy that size can do the stuff that he does. So he really impressed me this week. HBK, was not expecting him to show up on SmackDown. So, yeah, there's a highlight straight away. I really enjoyed Miz TV, that segment as a whole. But, HBK, he's not one of those guys that gives me goosebumps when I hear Sexy Boy. But he is somebody, I am excited to see. And SmackDown was no different. It was really fun to see him on Miz TV, and talking with Miz, and then the stuff with Ziggler. He took the super kick from Dolph, so he can still bump, he can still wrestle. Maybe we'll get a Dolph versus Shawn Michaels match. Would you guys want that? I don't know. I don't know if I would want to see that. If Shawn has one more match left in him with meaning, I'm completely disregarding that Saudi show because it was... I'm not even going to speak about it. It was terrible. If he has one more match in him with meaning, do we really want it to be Dolph? I don't think so. But really enjoyed that segment. Ember Moon is slowly... I say slowly. It started slowly and now it's building now. She's looking really strong, and she hasn't looked strong at all on the main roster since she debuted, in my opinion. This is the strongest she's looked. Despite, obviously, I know it was a distraction, but she still beat Charlotte in about 25 seconds. Beat Charlotte in 25 seconds. That means something. And not only that, she gave both of them an eclipse at the end of, after the match, and looked strong as hell. That is how you book Ember Moon. Easy. Why weren't you doing this from the start? She's a badass. Let her do badass things. Done. Highlight. In the bag. Awesome. More of that, please. Now, I stan Randy Orton. I always have. People say he's boring and he has a very mundane style, and he does, to an extent, but he's very, very good at it. And his verbal sparring is also a treat. And I actually only initially put Kofi down because Kofi delivered his promo, and he brought up Madison Square Garden, where he got the upper hand over Orton, did the boom drop through the table. Really good, really cool moment. And yeah, he brought that up. And I actually was only going to put Kofi on here because I thought Kofi was really, really good on the mic. But then Orton opened his mouth and said, yeah, I did use my influence to hold you back. And he said, you weren't ready, and you aren't ready now. I love Randy Orton as a heel. I've never been a real big babyface Orton fan. He's not doing the vicious stuff that he did when he was in feuds with Jeff. And who else was he against when he was doing all that stuff? I can't remember, but that's by the by. He's not doing that kind of stuff anymore. He's now essentially just a RKO machine. That's what we're getting now. And I have zero complaints. Give me this match at SummerSlam. Bring it on. I'm so looking forward to it. It'll be a closing chapter on their long-running rivalry, which is, it's been dormant for a very long time. So I'm looking forward to watching that. Bray Wyatt is, of course, Bray Wyatt is another highlight. We saw the Firefly Funhouse again. That was good. Was not expecting to see that. I was expecting The Fiend. Oh, actually, no, I wasn't even expecting anybody. I thought Finn was going to come out and they were going to do the interview side of things, and that was it. But we had the Firefly Funhouse. No Fiend until, the back end of it. I really like the booking of Bray now that he's in front of a live crowd. Obviously, he was on the big screen this week on SmackDown, but it was directed at Finn Balor, and I did worry how they were going to play up to it, but it seems that the Fiend is going to be the in-ring portion, and this the Funhouse side of things is going to be backstage and promos and stuff like that. I'm more than happy with that. More than happy. And we got that match at SummerSlam, and I hope that Balor is not the Demon, because I'm not quite ready for the Fiend versus the Demon. That is a WrestleMania match. I'm telling you now. Then we had the main event segment with Kevin Owens versus Reigns, with Drew as special guest referee, and then Shane and Elias, doing their bits as well. It was a non-event, the match. It just turned out into a brawl, but Kevin Owens once again looked incredible. 2 stunners on Shane, and Roman just stood back and acknowledged Kevin Owens in this spot, which is at the moment I would say higher than what Reigns is, and he stood there and accepted it. And people hate on Roman. They always have, they always will. But he's not complaining that somebody else has his spot. So that's one less thing that you haters out there can hate on. But that closed SmackDown. SmackDown was really, really good this week. What was better though, Raw or SmackDown? I honestly cannot. No, I can actually. I'd say that SmackDown was better purely because it wasn't relying on a gimmick. There you go. And we had storyline progression. We had some really cool moments, without needing legends apart from HBK. It was good. I really enjoyed SmackDown. A couple of your tweets on SmackDown. My buddy, my co-host of Ditz versus Josh, Josh Robinson 00. He said, I'm at a place where I'm literally enjoying 95% of all the stories in WWE right now. Creatively, I think it's really good. And then he put cue the effing screams. I completely agree. There's so many stories at the moment that are being built properly, and characters are being developed, and loose ends are being tied up. It's you've got the Alexa Nikki stuff that's still going on. You got the Bray Finn Balor stuff that's going on. And I'm sure there's going to be stuff littered in between all that. You got Owens and Shane, Kofi Orton, Dolph versus everybody, it would seem at this point. You've got so many stories going on, and most of them are working. 95% of them working. Yeah, you could argue it. You really could, but at least Josh, you are more positive than 95% of wrestling Twitter. Wrestle Features, and they said, since winning the WWE title at WrestleMania, Kofi has only lost twice. Both of those losses coming in tag matches. He has not been pinned in a singles match. Strong booking is so refreshing. And it is. This is what Josh was alluding to. It's really good to see somebody... They've taken a chance on somebody, but not only that, they followed through with it, which is good. It is rare. I can't name that many people who they follow through on. Daniel Bryan is probably the most recent example that I can think of. And I'm not talking about heel Bryan. I'm talking about, all the way back to WrestleMania 30 Bryan. I'm just nitpicking here. And you are right. He hasn't been pinned in singles matches. But he did take a fall when they were doing this stupid 2 out of 3 fucking falls matches, stuff like that. He did take a fall to Dolph Ziggler. So I actually count that because it annoys me that much that I do count that as a loss, even though it, in the record books, in the history books, it is not a loss, but he still took a fall. But no, absolutely, Kofi is one of the best booked people in WWE right now. You cannot argue that. Eddie, so at heel_Rawlins, the Fiend versus the Demon at SummerSlam would be fantastic. It really would. I know I said I don't want the Demon at SummerSlam, and that's just because I think you can have a better build to it than, the Fiend coming out attacking Balor and then Balor going, right, I want you at SummerSlam. There you go. Let's get the Demon out. You can build to it a lot more than that. And when Finn's had his little break following SummerSlam, and then he comes back and, maybe he feuds with other people for a little bit, whatever it ends up being, build to the Fiend versus the Demon over a decent amount of time, because there's money there. And it won't be, Pumpkin Spice Balor versus Bray Wyatt in drag either. It'll be something good. And finally, the Canadian Experience said, I feel like WWE has done a great job building Ziggler versus Miz and Orton versus Kingston. Oh, and yes, I do give credit when credit is due. And I'm glad that's the case. I'm glad that you acknowledge when things are going right, because some people just force themselves to be blind to good stuff that WWE is doing. It's the cool thing to do these days, apparently. But yeah, Ziggler and Miz is building up nicely. Orton and Kingston, their rivalry is, long-standing. It's always been there. But it's just been, massively in the background, and, it's not needed to be in the spotlight. But now Kofi's the champion. Bring it back. The build is already there. They're just adding extra layers to it. And those layers so far, great. Love it. And that was SmackDown. Yeah, really, really good show. And I really hope that next week follows suit. We get a good Raw. Let's put the reunion behind us. It was fun, whatever. Let's get back into storyline development, character development, all that good stuff. Building towards SummerSlam. Let's have a good Raw. Let's have a good SmackDown. But let's move on from that and head into DOW Recommends. This week is a little bit different. But let's segue in and then we'll talk about it. That's right. The ridiculous segue still exists. It's the one thing I can't escape from episode 1 of the Dits on Wrestling podcast. So yeah, DOW Recommends. This week, I don't have a profile to recommend. Not because I don't want to, I just don't have a profile to recommend. And I'm not actually recommending a match this week either. I'm only recommending one thing. And this week I'm going for a wrestling theme song, because I've been listening to a lot of wrestling theme songs on the way to work, on the way home, just in general. And just one that it just keeps constantly appearing is The Brood. One of my favorite WWE themes. I say WWE themes, just themes in general. Like, it's absolutely fantastic. Completely fit The Brood and Gangrel. It just sounds so badass. The opening bit with all that stuff, and then the guitar slams in. Oh my god, it is awesome. Go and check it out. Get on Spotify, get on Apple Music, get on YouTube, whatever it is, wherever you listen to music, get on it, listen to it. It's so good. Just good nostalgia kick. Definitely in my top 5 wrestling themes of all time. Definitely. And in fact, actually, while we're recommending stuff, I'm going to recommend this as well, because I put it up on my Twitter, a couple of days ago. The Disturbed Stone Cold Steve Austin theme tune is an absolute banger. That is my favorite Stone Cold. I mean, the original will always be the best, but my favorite is this one. Just the guitars just sound so much heavier. The glass shatter exactly the same, which is good, but then it just goes. It's just got a bit of extra oomph to it, and then of course you've got the Disturbed aspect of it as well, which is cool. And then that is a short DOW recommends this week, but they are still recommendations regardless. And I'll keep doing it, every single week. But I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm not always going to focus on a profile. I'm not always going to focus on a match. I thought I'd go for something a little bit different because I've been listening to a lot of themes this week. There you go. 2 awesome WWE theme songs for you to go away from this podcast to listen to. Obviously, wait until the end of the podcast. Finish the podcast. And then go check it out. Awesome stuff. Now, I actually don't have a segue into the Q&A side of things. The Q&A has returned for a second episode in a row, and of course it's something that I want to keep going. It's really fun to take questions from people, and just answer them. It's, and I always put, it doesn't always have to be about wrestling. It could be about anything. You guys that are listening are either new listeners, and if you are a new listener, then thanks for joining, and I hope you stick around. But if you listen to me on a regular basis, I've lost my trail of thought. What was I saying? That's right. Yeah, so if look at that little edit in there, you can tell that I went away for about 5 minutes to actually think about what I was going to say. Ooh, editing trick. The imaginary producer, I'm going to call him Robbie this week. The imaginary producer, Robbie, has just worked magic there. You would never have thought that I just took a break for 5 minutes to come up with my trail of thought once again. No, what I'm saying is, though, is that if you do listen to this, quite a lot, and you're investing your time in it, it is good, to know a little bit about the person that you're listening to. So if you want to, find anything about, what I do for a living, or, what I like, music and all that kind of stuff, then just ask me. This post will go up every single week asking for questions. It can be about wrestling, which I'm sure, predominantly it will be. But I'm open to everything. And this week, there are 2 questions that are not wrestling based. So to those 2 people, awesome. Thank you very much. And obviously, the people that ask wrestling questions, thank you for those as well. So let's just get into them straight away. Anthony Leonhardt. Hey, you're going to be seeing a lot of him soon with the WWE fan art that I'm bringing back on sltdwrestling.com. He was always a heavy feature when I used to do it last year, and he's already lined up to be in it this week. He is a stable of it. He does some good graphics that are really cool, and I'm looking forward to featuring him there. But he'll always be on this in some way, shape, or form. He's always amongst the power rankings every week. And today he submitted a question, which is really good. And by the way, I'm reading these questions on the fly. Of course, I've seen the questions, but I haven't thought about an answer for them. I'm just going to just read it and just answer, whatever comes to my head. So his question is, top 3 from NXT, the ones who should be NXT North American champions. So I'm assuming the top 3 contenders for that title. I'm not going to put them in order, but I think the strongest case has to be Roderick Strong, surely. You got Adam Cole, who is NXT champion. You've got O'Reilly and Fish, who are going to be, I'd imagine, tag team champions once Toronto's all said and done. So there is only one more belt for Roddy to go for, and that's the North American Championship, which I think would look really good around his waist and in the capable hands of the Undisputed Era. I love Roderick Strong. I love him. I think he's a really good wrestler. And I think it's about time that he got himself a title. Perfect title win for him. Best the dream in Toronto. Give it to us. The other 2. Who else would I have? I guess you could throw in Matt Riddle. I mean, I know he's deemed more of a main eventer, somebody who's going to be going after Adam Cole. But if you want to, settle him into a mid-card title first and then build him up from that, give him the North American Championship. Ricochet had it. Even Adam Cole had it. I think Matt Riddle will be a really good North American champion. He's already gone for it already. So why not do it again? And purely because, I'm a huge fan of his, I'd love to see Tyler Breeze get the title win as well. I don't think he's ever held a singles title in WWE. In fact, I'm pretty sure he has not. 99% sure that he's not. Now that he's come back down to NXT, which is really, really good to see, I think he'd be perfect to hold that title. He'd be perfect to hold the NXT championship, but I can't see him being entered into that picture, anytime soon. So settling into the North American Championship title picture is doable, and he could win it. Easy as that. So Roderick Strong, Matt Riddle, and Tyler Breeze. There you go. They're my top 3. There's probably other people I've completely forgotten about, like Kushida and guys like that. But they're my top 3. At Josh Robinson 00, my co-host on Dis vs. Josh, is appearing for the second time on this podcast. Usually I would say go away to such things, but I like Josh, so he gets a bye. Favorite Friends character? When I was younger, and I used to watch Friends. I say I used to watch Friends. I still watch it every single day. It never gets boring. But when I was younger, I used to be a huge Joey guy. And I think a lot of people, are similar to that. He's an idiot. He's a lovable idiot. He's hilarious. He was me, essentially. But as I've grown up, Chandler has become my favorite. The sarcasm, the wit, the dry humor in some places, and not only that, he gets a hard time, doesn't he? Bless him. And, he just wants to be loved like everybody else. And he finds it in Monica. Personally, I don't know why, but he does find it with Monica, so good on him. But yeah, as I grew up, Chandler became my guy, closely followed by Ross as well. Ross is hilarious. Never really thought much to Monica or Phoebe though. I do like Rachel, but Monica and Phoebe not so much. Early Monica, yes, but as the seasons went on, Monica fell off the rails, and Phoebe I just never understood, never really got it. But yeah, so I'm going to say Chandler. Chandler's my favorite Friends character, if we were going off now. Jamie the Brain Heenan. Here's a Bray Wyatt question. What do you think they'll do, and what would you like to see them do with Nice Bray versus The Fiend? Do you think the nice guy will only exist on Firefly Funhouse vignettes, and The Fiend will be the one we always see in the ring? Thanks, weekly power anchor, JH. So yes, always in the power rankings every week, so thank you very much for that. And thank you very much for your question. Initially, when this whole thing was kicking off, and we hadn't even... The Fiend had just appeared. That first time we saw The Fiend, I thought that it was going to be... we were going to have babyface Bray, but we're going to have heel Fiend. That's what I thought was going to happen. Now, it's more black and white. Bray Wyatt, in the Funhouse, he acts like a babyface, a little bit, but just with a bit of a psychotic edge, a sociopathic edge. He has that going on. But you could see him as a babyface, kind of. But The Fiend is outright heel. Massively so. So, originally, I thought they were going to be battling against each other. Like, Bray was trying to keep him in. But obviously, now we kind of know that Bray is very aware of The Fiend and is more than happy to unleash The Fiend on anybody he so desires. So I don't even think it's a case of, an inner conflict between the two personalities. I don't think that's a thing now. So I would love to have seen that element of, both sides fighting against each other. But, I think they're now they're now together. And I do like that. I like that way they've done it. I would have liked to have seen, how they would have played out a personality conflict, within itself. But I'm more than happy to keep them both, as the same person, but one just does other things. I'm happy with that. But yeah, I do think that the Firefly Funhouse Bray will be the person appearing in vignettes, backstage. Maybe he will come out for a promo, but it would be in a non-physical role, whereas The Fiend takes on, everything else. Because my concern is if Bray comes out, Funhouse Bray, positive Bray, it's going to slowly, morph back into, us perceiving him as the Bray Wyatt of old. Whereas The Fiend is something completely different. It's still Bray Wyatt, obviously, but it's something completely different that he's undertaking. So if The Fiend is the one doing the wrestling in the ring, we can differentiate between Bray Wyatt of old and Bray Wyatt now. So I'm hoping that is the case. Firefly Funhouse is the promo side of things, and The Fiend is the in-ring side of things. There you go. Now, this question really amused me because I have the daddiest dad bod that you could ever have. That's what I'm rocking at the moment. But I'm trying to rectify that. But at the moment, I'm in full dad bod mode. I'm not in beast mode. I'm in yeast mode. So Jamie Ann Morgan has asked, what is a fun way to stay in shape? Workout tips are clearly what I'm after. It's very, very subjective, trying to think of, fun ways to work out. And, for me, team sport is always, a fun way to stay in shape. I've always loved playing football, and because you enjoy it, you kind of, you forget that you're exercising, and that's an important thing for me. If I'm doing, if I'm doing exercise, then I'd want to kind of trick my brain into thinking I'm not doing it because I'm enjoying it. So if I'm lifting, I don't do weights. It's not something I do. So if I'm lifting weights, I know full well I'm lifting weights because it hurts, it aches, and I hate it. I find absolutely zero enjoyment in doing weights, doing press-ups, doing sit-ups, any of that kind of stuff. Pass. I am cardio all the way. I'm a cardio guy. So team sports for me is the big one. So football, rugby, basketball, all that kind of stuff. And, even individual sports, like squash. Squash is really enjoyable for me. And I find that incredibly fun to do, and it's knackering at the same time. So you're always getting a good workout whilst enjoying it. So you forget that it's a workout until you finish and you go, wow, I am absolutely shattered, but I feel good about it. And I always find that if you're doing something mundane, so if you're doing CV in the gym on a cross trainer or a treadmill or something like that, I hate that, by the way, but I do it. And you either listen to music that really, really pumps you up. So I listen to, like dubstep or stuff like that, or I listen to wrestling themes that, are a bit more, thrashy and metally and rock. I listen to all that kind of stuff, and it really gets me through it because, the music just pumps you through that entire session. But if that's not the way you want to go, I actually found recently, when I was away with work, I was in the gym every single day. Since I've been back, I've put all that weight back on, but I lost quite a lot of weight whilst I was away. And I put it down. I was literally just doing the cross trainer every single day, but I was listening to podcasts whilst I was doing it. I saved so many podcasts up to listen to. So Something to Wrestle, they're really long episodes, so I listened to that, 83 weeks. And then, the Edge and Christian show, and then, a smattering of other ones whilst I was away. And I literally sat on the cross trainer for 45 to 60 minutes and literally just sat and listened to the podcast. And my mind was just completely zoned in on what was happening on the pod that I completely forgot that I was on the cross trainer. So I find that as a fun way of doing things. And this final thing, and this might not be your bag, but it's certainly very, very interesting. When I took up running again, I'd say about 4 years ago now, I found an app called Zombies Run. And if you put your headphones in and you start this app up, you're basically you're running, of course, but you're playing a game whilst you're running. So you're trying to, there's been a zombie apocalypse, and you're out trying to collect supplies. So you got to run from point A to B, collect supplies. Obviously, the faster you run, the quicker you get there. And then along the way, you'll have zombies chasing you, and then you have to run faster to get away from them. That kind of stuff. I mean, it was very simplistic back 4 years ago. I'm sure it's morphed into something more now. I'd actually be interested in actually taking that up again because it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and it made running bearable because I hate running. I hate phys. I hate physical activity. I hate it. But no, that actually made it a little bit fun. So yeah, there's a couple of things. I don't know if you're going to take anything away from that, but that's coming from somebody who's rocking a dad bod. So take from it what you will. But there you go. There are this week's questions. I want to keep this going. I don't expect, like hundreds of questions to come in. I like the fact that, only 4 people put questions in this week because it's manageable and I don't have to disappoint anybody by not reading their questions out. So it's perfect. So to those who submit questions, thank you very much. And feel free, of course, to throw more questions at me next week. Because, like I said, this is going to be a weekly thing. But there you go. That is it. That is the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed it. And obviously I alluded to the fact that, I want to make some changes to the structure of this podcast, as the weeks go on. And I do have ideas, for doing that in my head. It's just putting a bit more focus on, certain areas of the podcast. There's so much stuff, that I want to do, and it's just pulling the trigger, because there's always that concern that it's not going to end up being good, and I wouldn't want to take anything away from what I've got now, because I enjoy the format that this has. I really do. But I think it could be improved, and maybe throwing something completely, throwing this into, something completely different will ruin what I've already built up. That's always, that is always the fear. But sometimes you just got to pull the trigger, adapt to your situation, and, crack on. But there will be new stuff coming in the next couple of weeks. Some guest spots, on my show. I'll be guest spotting on other people's shows. Got a couple of things lined up there as well. And of course, I've got Ditz versus Josh on the go as well. So if you haven't checked that out, it's basically me and Josh Robinson of the Wrestling Reverb podcast doing a Raw versus Smackdown from the original brand extension, WWE brand extension. And we basically just go from week to week and battle out Raw versus SmackDown. It's a lot of fun, and we get to watch old Raws and SmackDowns. I'm really enjoying it at the moment. We're in episode 1 at the moment, and we've got episode 2 dropping on Saturday. So look out for it, because it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I've got that going on. I've got potential stuff coming to this podcast. I'm busy, and actually, I alluded to it actually a little bit. I completely forgot about saying this. I alluded to it a little bit. WWE Fan Art of the Week is something that I used to do a lot. Last year, every single week, I'd come up with a list. I'd do fan art showcases where I'd interview, an artist and all that kind of stuff. It was really good, really well received. It makes its return this week, tomorrow. So obviously this drops on a Thursday. This Fan Art of the Week drops on Friday as part of sltdwrestling.com. It's going to be the same format that it always was. It's just in a different home. It might obviously look a little bit different, but ultimately it's still a means to support artists who, not just focus on WWE stuff, which is what I'm interested in. But they do other stuff as well. And I want to show my support to them. I really enjoy looking at all this stuff and, just being completely wowed by the fact that these people have got a talent that I wish that I had. And being able to showcase that is, it's a treat. It's a treat for me, and it was a treat for a lot of people when I was doing it last time. So that comes back on Friday on sltdwrestling.com. So look out for that. Apart from that, though, if you're just going to stick by the podcast, then you can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker, part of the SLTD Podcast Network. I'm probably in other places as well that I don't even realize I'm in these places. So I have a link tree on my Twitter page now, so you can access all the links to all those places with relative ease. But there you go. That is episode 12. No. That is episode 13 in the bag. And I will see you on Monday for the next round of the DOW Power Rankings. But until then, have yourself a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for listening as always. Ciao, ciao.